Hey guys, so this is section 2, solving a one-step equation. So I'm going to explain what is an equation and how it's related to a balance scale. So that's why I have a picture here on the screen so you guys can see it. An equation is just like when you have two sides and the two sides are equal to each other. So the balance scale is something like that. On the left side, you have the same weight as the right side if it's balanced. If it's not balanced, one side is going to go down and the other side is going to go up. It depends on the weight. But an equation is to keep that balance. So the left side, the weight on the left side equals the weight on the right side. Now sometimes the two sides, they look different. The left side might not look the same as the right side. If you guys notice here, we have a green bag with 3 balls outside of the bag and on the left side, and on the right side we have just balls. We don't have any green bag to see on the right side. Now the goal, this is what we do. When we solve, the goal is if you have like a bag and you want to know how many red balls you have inside, well, you are looking for that number, that value. And that's what solving is. We want to know what is the value of that unknown variable. The variable doesn't matter. That letter can be an X, it can be a Y, it can be a T, any letter in the alphabet. But when we solve an equation, we always want to get rid of every number that is close to the variable. And I'll give you guys some steps in a little bit, so you guys need to memorize in order to solve. Now, imagine if I take these 3 balls from the left side. So I grab the 3 balls and I just take them out. This right here, since it's going to be a lot lighter than this one, it's going to go up. And this side is going to go down. So if I want to keep a balance, if I take 3 balls out from here, to keep a balance, I need to take 3 balls out from here. So I'm just going to scratch those out so you guys have a visual. But I'm just going to put a box here, cross them out, so there's a 3 gone. So I'm going to have to do the same thing over here, and I'm going to have to take these 3 balls out. Now you guys can see that if I do that, the balance, imagine the balance is going to stay the same. It's not going to move. But if you notice, this bag right here, there's no more balls here, it's just a bag, is equal to how many? 4 balls. And that's what we want. We want to know what is the unknown value in an equation. Now, if you guys erase them, well, not erase, if you guys get those balls back, well, you can also use common sense. If we have 7 balls on the right side, we can see 3 balls here, and we want to know how many are inside. Well, to keep that balance, we must have 7 balls on this side too. 7 and 7. So that means that we need 4 inside of the bag plus the 3 outside will make 7. And that's the value of that variable, the X. So that's what's an equation. You guys just want to keep the balance, and whatever you do to one side, to get the balance, you have to do it to the other side. In mathematics, we have 4 different operations. We have adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And every time you guys want to solve, you are going to use the inverse operation of those, or the opposite of that math operation. For example, if you guys add, the opposite is subtract. If you guys divide, the opposite will be multiplication. Or if you multiply, the opposite will be division. If you subtract, the opposite will be addition. So I have 3 steps that I want you guys to know and to memorize when you solve. So let's look at step number 1. When you guys solve, I like to simplify each side of the equation and get all variables on the same side. Sometimes the equation is already simplified. Sometimes you don't have variables on both sides of the equation. And I'll let you guys know when we have variables on both sides. In this section, we will not have variables on both sides, but you might have an X on the left side of the equation and an X on the right side of the equation. Now, simplify. What does it mean to simplify? You want to distribute, if you can, you use the distributive property. You combine like terms, if we have any, get rid of fractions, and get the variables on the same side. Now, like I said, guys, sometimes you don't have variables on both sides. Sometimes we don't have like terms, sometimes we don't have fractions, and sometimes we don't have to distribute. But that's the idea. For step number 1, you always want to simplify. Then you go to step number 2. Step number 2, you eliminate the constant on the same side of the variable. After you simplify, after you get the variables on both sides, you eliminate that constant. What is a constant? The number with no variable. How do you eliminate it? How do you get rid of it? Well, you are going to use the inverse operations for adding and subtracting. So if you are adding a number, the inverse, the opposite, will be subtraction. If you are subtracting a number, the opposite will be addition. So you just have to do the inverse operation or the opposite of that number. And step number 3, you want to isolate the variable. Isolate means you want to get that variable by itself. So you might have something like this in your equation. Let's say you have 3x equals 9. Well, you have to look what is happening with the 3 and the x. When this is happening, when you guys see this right here, that means that you are multiplying the 3 and the x. So the opposite of multiplication will be division. And that's the inverse operation of multiplication. You divide. If you're dividing, then you guys do the inverse operation, which is multiply. So this is what it means. When you want to isolate the variable, you want to get rid of this number. But it's not just erasing the number, you have to do some math operations. So I'm going to show you guys some examples, and then I'll give you guys also some fractions, because you guys cannot avoid fractions. So let's go ahead and see example number 1. In example 1, guys, we are going to do a one-step solving equations, which means you have to add or subtract in order to get the variable by itself. So let me start with the one on the top. X plus 8 equals 14. Now I want you guys to really understand what is happening with the variable and the number. So just focus on the left side. And what I like to do is draw a line underneath the equal sign. So you guys know that I am looking at the left side of the equation, and this is the right side. On the left side, we don't have anything. There's the x plus the 8, and we have parentheses. So that means that you guys cannot distribute. That means that the 8 doesn't have an x, so you guys cannot combine. These are not like terms, and there's no fractions. So this side is already simplified. Over here, 14 is by itself. So you have a number, nothing else, so you guys can add, nothing else, so you guys can subtract. So it is already simplified. So we go to step number 2. And step number 2 is when you get the variable on the same side and you do the opposite. So this is the left side. This is the variable. There's the constant. So the opposite of plus will be minus. So I'm going to subtract 8. And I'm going to subtract 8 on this side. So when you do that, guys, look what happens with these two numbers here. Positive 8 minus 8. Cancels. Then 0. 8 minus 8 is 0. So you guys are not going to use the 0, but you're going to bring down the x here. And on the right side, you guys are going to simplify. So if you guys look at these two numbers, 14 minus 8, that's going to be 6. I want you guys to understand what you are looking at. First of all, on the left side, x is by itself. There's nothing else on the left side but just the x. On the right side, we have a number. We have a value. X equals 6. So my answer will be this. And always, guys, the idea is to get the variable by itself. So you always do the inverse operation. So now I'm going to show you guys a different example, which is this one right here. So notice that we have negative 6 plus x equals 4. Now, once again, I'm going to draw my line so you guys can see the left side and the right side. On the left side, we have negative 6 plus x. These are not like terms. You don't have parentheses. You don't have fractions. So this is already simplified. You guys cannot do anything to those two terms. On the right side, it's just a number. So I'm looking for the constants on the same side of the variable, which is the left side. So here's the constant. Negative 6 doesn't have a variable. So I'm going to do the opposite of that number. And I do have a minus 6, so I'm going to add 6. And then I'm going to go to the other side, plus 6, so I keep that balance like I showed you guys on the scale. What do we do to one side? You have to do it to the other side. You must keep that balance at all times. The negative 6 plus 6 cancels. That's going to equal 0. So you don't need to put the 0, but you bring down the variable. There's the x. I don't need the plus on the side because if you have an x, mathematically, we all know that that is a positive x. On the right side, you guys are going to add 4 plus 6, 10. So my answer will be x equals 10. Sometimes you guys have the variable on the other side. Doesn't matter what side the variable is, the idea, the concept is the same. So if you guys draw a line under the equal sign, notice that on the left side, it's just a number, negative 7. On the right side, these are not like terms, so you guys cannot combine. The constant is right here, minus 20. So I'm going to use the opposite. Opposite of minus is plus. So I'm going to add 20, and then I go to the other side, and I add 20 to the left side. On the left side, negative 7 plus 20, that's going to be 13. On the right side, I'm going to bring down the m, and then I'm going to do negative 20 plus 20. Cancels. That equals 0. They're opposite from each other, so you guys don't need to put that 0. Now, if you guys use the equal sign, 13 equals m, that is the correct answer. It's not very common to have the variable on the right side of the equal sign, so you can also write down your answer as m equals 13. You guys will see this answer more often than 13 equals m, but they're both the same. All right, guys, so we're just going to do some practice. Let me show you guys a few more. So I'm going to show you guys when you have to solve by dividing. So I want you guys to look at the difference up here and down here, okay? Sometimes you have to subtract, sometimes you have to add, and this one you have to add. Now notice that up here you have x plus 8, so the opposite will be minus. Over here, negative 6 plus x, so there's something in between the number and the variable. These examples, there's nothing in between, and this one is just a negative m. When you guys do not have anything in between the number and the variable, that's actually multiplying the two terms. So the 7 is multiplying the x, the 15 is multiplying the x, and then I'll get into the negative m in a second. But when you guys are multiplying and you want to get the variable by itself, you guys just do the opposite. And the opposite will be division. So when you guys are going to get the variable by itself by dividing, notice the variable is right here. I'm doing 7x equals 63. So I'm going to get rid of this number. I'm going to divide by 7. So notice what I did. I put a fraction and I put the number I want to get rid of. Here's the line. And whatever you do to one side, you have to do it to the other side. So I'm going to divide by 7 on the right side. When you go back to the left side, 7 divided by 7, that turns into a 1. 7 divided by 7 is 1. We don't need that 1 next to the x. You just bring down the x. Right here, you have an invisible 1, which is the one we have, but you don't need it. Equals, and on the right side, you are going to divide 63 by 7, and that's 9. So my answer is x equals 9. If the variable is on the right side, like this one here, well, you guys have to get rid of this number. Remember that I told you these are multiplying, 15 times p. So the opposite of multiplication will be division. I divide by 15. Let me draw the line under the equation so I know where to go. And whatever you do to one side, you have to do it to the other side. So you divide by 15. So when you guys divide the left side, negative 80 divided by positive 15. Negative 180 divided by 15, you guys will get a negative answer, and it will be negative 12 equals, on the right side, 15 divided by 15, that's going to equal 1. We don't need that 1 next to the p, so we just bring down the p. I told you guys p is very common to be on the left side, so you guys can switch. P equals negative 12. Now the last one I want to show you guys is negative m equals negative 144. Well, first of all, we have to understand what is happening to the m and the negative. So let me just zoom in. And looking at the negative m, well, here guys, between the negative and the m, there's an actually invisible 1. So we have a negative 1 m. Every time you guys have that negative next to the variable, it's a negative 1. You can never have a negative variable for your answer. You have to get rid of the negative. So if you remember that you guys have a negative 1, all you do, guys, you are going to divide by that number. So divide by negative 1. And on the other side, let me put the line here, you're also going to divide by negative 1. So when you look at this box right here, you guys have negative 1 divided by negative 1. Hey, that turns into positive 1. Negative divided by negative is positive. So I don't need that positive 1. I bring down the m. On the right side, you guys have to be careful with the signs, because we have a negative 144 divided by a negative 1. Negative divided by negative will be positive. So that's going to be positive 144. So my answer is m equals 144. All right, guys, make sure you guys check my second part of this section so you guys know the other operations and how to solve a one-step equations. See you guys later.